Okay, please welcome Jose Maria Sison from the Netherlands. Kajoma, can you please give an update on the status of the peace talks with the Duterte government?
What has delayed the resumption of the talks is the slow pace and the release of political prisoners. As you know, we are trying to get the release of 22 political prisoners protected by the joint agreement on safety and immunity guarantees, and some 87 political prisoners who are sickly, elderly, overly long in prison, and women. Certainly, the comprehensive agreement on social and economic reforms will involve the migrants and the families. First, there's the prospect of developing the Philippine economy through national industrialization and land reform. So there will be more opportunities in the Philippines. Migrants can come back to the Philippines and work. And they can also contribute what they have, what knowledge and skills that they have developed. Of course, there's the promise of economic development under the comprehensive agreement on social and economic reforms. But I think the rights and interests of migrant workers can be looked after by the Philippine government as a result of the peace negotiations. Problems can be presented and actions can be agreed upon. And so it's not only a matter of looking forward to what can be done with the Philippine economy in the next so many years. I think the Duterte government, under the influence of progressive forces, can pay more attention to the rights and interest of the migrant workers abroad. And the migrants themselves can take the initiative in undertaking a mass movement for the peace negotiations and for making their proposals, their own proposals to the Duterte government and to the two sides in the peace negotiations.
My name is Tony from National Ecumenical Forum for Filipino Concerns. You mentioned that the successful conclusion of the peace talk will depend on the authorities agreeing on 3 points, which is the policy of national industrialization and land reform, also policy of national independence by abrogating unequal treaties, and also policy of truce and cooperation with the People's Army and other revolutionary forces. So you said this would be the successful conclusion will depend on these 3 major points. However, recently, Duterte mentioned that he, during his inauguration, said that he will honor all the agreements that have been achieved with various national agreements. So if one of these things will not be agreed on, would you consider still a successful peace negotiation? And if so, will there be a return to armed struggle?
Well, the
existing unequal administrative agreement.
agreements with the Philippine government, no, with foreign countries,
Yes.
especially the U.S. Probably. Well, the Duterte government sometimes makes apparently self-contradictory statements, but you have to consider the context, the concrete context. For instance, he would make critical remarks regarding relations with the U.S. and would assert independence. But in the case of the issue involving the West Philippine Sea, he would cite existing agreements with even Western powers, including the United States, that would help secure the rights of the Philippines over the exclusive economic zone and the extended continental shelf. No, so well, the maximum demands can be made, and maybe not all the agreements can be abrogated or amended properly, but so long as there is a certain amount of agreement that would mean substantial change, and such substantial change in external relations will not obstruct but will be helpful to developments in other fields. So, then the peace process can still move on. But of course, I'm not foreclosing the possibility that the U.S. and all the creditors of the Philippine government will not prevail, no? Because, the Philippines is a deeply indebted country. And if foreign powers would just decide to stop the flow of foreign loans to the Philippines, that would be too difficult. And either Duterte will have to adopt revolutionary measures and embrace the revolutionary movement, or submit himself to the pressures of the imperialist powers. But that is jumping to conclusion without testing the concrete realities and taking the necessary steps in negotiations. The Duterte government is in a process of unfolding, and one of the means of testing what the Duterte government is capable of is to engage it in peace negotiations. And also, outside of the peace negotiations, the patriotic and progressive mass organizations have submitted what they call the Agenda for People's Change. And let us see if the Duterte government would heed the demands in such an agenda for change. No, obviously it's change from a semi-colonial and semi-feudal kind of society to a more patriotic and progressive kind of society, and measures and measurements will have to be made as we move from one phase to another. And there is a sharp question whether the movement, the National Democratic Front of the Philippines, should go back to armed struggle if frustrated. Certainly it will go back to armed struggle if the frustration is so grave that the NDF will proclaim there's no more point in negotiating. But so long as there are gains made from face to face, then the peace negotiations will move on, will move forward.
We have another question. Since the Armed Forces of the Philippines is historically the most loyal organization to the U.S. government, as stated in Philippine Society and Revolution, how do you gauge Duterte's ability to exercise control and influence over them to implement the potential peace agreements? Because it seems as if Oplan Bayanihan is still being implemented by the AFP.
Well, Duterte has appeared to be quite different from previous presidents. Have you seen any president declaring himself as a left president and saying certain progressive things that are worthy of examining and being tested through the peace negotiations and through, the political process in general? So there is some kind of a unique president offering some unique possibilities. In the Philippines, what national democratic forces are accustomed to is to fight every administration because it is more categorically, more sharply connected to the U.S. and to oligarchic interests of the big corporators and landlords. But this time, there's someone who doesn't care about, amassing wealth and when he is humble about having power. He tries to look strong only in facing up to criminality, no? And there are instances when he tries to stand strongly against foreign interferences, such as, the attempt of the U.S. to put up a drone center in Davao City, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, there are sometimes expressions of President Duterte that excite even opposition from progressive forces. For instance, he suggests having business islands, and he would prohibit the KMU, Kilusang Mayo Uno, from organizing unions, and he's used a strong word, no? He would kill anyone who form a union. And now, upon closer look at this business concept of business islands, it seems that it's a place where you can get new technology from abroad, and it's where you can provide immediate employment. And then this idea was supposed to have come from Jacinto. His now appointed economic advisor, who wants to revive the steel industry in the Philippines. So I think it's worthwhile to examine and test the opportunities being opened up by Duterte. About the AFP, there is a question about the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Of course, the Armed Forces of the Philippines is practically a creation of the U.S. It is supplied weapons, indoctrination, officer training, intelligence, and so many things by the U.S. And so it is very much under the influence of the U.S. But, a president who is patriotic can rouse a majority of the officers to adopt a patriotic line on definite issues for the benefit of the people. And the enlisted men come mainly from the working people. So it's possible for a patriotic president and strong-willed enough to introduce new things, including redirecting the armed forces, or if you see, if the U.S. would try to sow intrigue and break up the armed forces, then Duterte has to avail of the political and armed strength of people outside of the armed forces. You know, this is the calculation of the movement, no? It seems like Duterte wants the disarming of the New People's Army so that there will be a monopoly of armed power by the armed forces of the Philippines. But suppose he adopts the progressive line that would be offensive to the U.S., like abrogating key unequal treaties and agreements, and he would push for the national industrialization of the Philippines that could offend the U.S., and therefore the Duterte would have to have a broad front of political forces to support him, and if he wants to avoid the fate of Sukarno or Allende, then he would have to rely on the strength of an armed people. No? So, but you know, that's just something that's still speculative. Things will develop step by step. And it's good if he will at least turn out to be a national bourgeois anti-imperialist, wishing to make or acting to make the Philippines truly independent, democratic, and developed industrially. That remains to be seen. No, if he says now that it's opening up, well, we test how open he is. How open is he to changes along the patriotic and progressive line? Actually, it would be a test for the Duterte government whether to continue or plan Bayanihan, or to undertake a new campaign plan, a new operational plan that is, that follows U.S. dictates. And but you see, if Duterte is interested in a ceasefire agreement, he will have to comply with the requirement that each side will cease to plan and launch offensive military campaigns and operations.
What lessons has the NDFP learned from the peace negotiations in El Salvador and other countries? What are the differences between El Salvador's peace talks experience and the current Philippine situation? What are the differences between the Philippine peace talks and those currently happening in Colombia with the FARC?
Well, I have studied a bit the El Salvador case. The problem with the negotiations with regard to El Salvador was that the FMLN conceded right away to follow the legal and judicial system of the reactionary Salvadorian government. In the case of the NDF, it was able to work out a comprehensive agreement on respect for human rights and international humanitarian law by making the International Bill of Rights and the international humanitarian law as the point of reference. The NDF did not submit to the legal, judicial, and political system of the other side. So when it came to the starting point, the FMLN was already capitulating. Now, in the case of the FARC, the agreement or the negotiations going on between the Colombian government and the FARC, I think that requires further study. But I think that that there are certain weaknesses there, and the NDF can learn a lot from that peace negotiations to avoid pitfalls in negotiating with the Manila government. So anyway, there are lessons to learn from the El Salvador case as well as with the Colombia case involving FARC. The best model for the NDF is still the Chongqing negotiations conducted by the Chinese Communist Party with the Kuomintang government just after World War II.
Okay, so we're going to open up the Q&A to the audience. So I have a couple questions here. This one says, I recently learned a postponement of the Oslo talks from July to August. Are you confident with that? Why is there a 1 month delay?
Well, from the outside, it looks like the Manila government is quite slow in complying with the Oslo joint statement. But according to our lawyers who are dealing with the lawyers and officials of the other side, they are really trying hard. You see, they're trying hard to effect the release. So we give the benefit of a doubt to the GRP or the Manila government side. I think there is ample time to release the 22 JASIG protected political prisoners and most of the 87 humanitarian cases.
So the next question is from Eric Licas from Asia Journal. Although the NDFP retains its independence from the Philippine government, Duterte has included the NDFP representatives in his administration. What domestic goals do revolutionaries hope to pursue in collaboration with Duterte?
The conditions of war are continuing. In fact, without a ceasefire, there will be fighting while talking, while negotiating. So it will take some comprehensive agreements that will effect comprehensive and profound changes in the social economy and in the political system before it becomes truly possible to end the hostilities. And the NDF will maintain its independence, but is also ready to come to comprehensive agreements. And then, of course, in making those comprehensive agreements, they must be doable, and there should be a clear capability to carry out the agreements, and then there is a difference between the agreements and the implementation. if, let us say, the agreements are not implemented, then there will be reason for the people and the revolutionary forces to resume the armed revolution. So I do not think that would be a complete dismantling and disarming of the revolutionary forces. As a matter of fact, in the course of peace negotiations, if the Duterte government will really agree with the people's demands, then he would need an additional armed force. And if, let us say, he succumbs to the dictates and pressures of the imperialism and the Filipino reactionaries, the big compradores and landlords, then there will be cause for the continuance of the armed revolution. But since there are opportunities for moving up, for moving forward, the struggle for national liberation and democracy, the possibilities must first be exhausted before declaring that Duterte deserves the same kind of armed opposition that the previous administrations were confronted with. You see, Duterte has given positions, highly responsible positions, to progressive people. That's a good sign. And he himself, of course, it's only his statement where he says he would like to revolutionize the government. But you know, the big talk is also accompanied by appointments of truly progressive people to highly responsible positions. You know, there are more progressive people than you know that have been appointed at the cabinet level, under the at the level of the undersecretaries, and you know, in the middle rank. Progressives have been appointed in a big way. So there is a possibility for changing the character of the government significantly, but maybe not as much as a revolution would be able to make an entirely new government. And but we are in a process of development anyway. And I must remind you that in advancing the revolution, you take advantage of every possibility of disintegrating or improving for the benefit of the people what used to be your opponent, no? What used to be the government that oppresses and exploits the people. And you test the situation. If a new president arises and says he will make significant changes, and you know, it's only a matter of time that you can see whether the president is making just a demagogic statement or is serious about serious changes. And the important thing is the NDF retains all the way its revolutionary integrity and will not be deceived or will not put itself in a very vulnerable position of being discredited or even being destroyed by the U.S. and the reactionary forces.